Greg Palast is with us, our old buddy. At gregpalast.com is the website. You can tweet him at Greg_Palast. And he has been doing just amazing work suing Republican secretaries of state who have been suppressing the vote. I was just ranting a few minutes ago, Greg, about how if we're still doing exit polling, and frankly, I don't know where it's being done, who's doing it, or what states are going to do it this year, but exit polling has been probably our most reliable indicator in the past of how successful voter suppression efforts have been, because people go in, they're given a provisional ballot, they don't realize it doesn't get counted, they tell the exit pollster that they voted, and then, you know, the exit pollsters say, well, you know, Al Gore won Florida by 2 points, but then the actual numbers come out, and oh no, it's dead heat, you know, and that's because 90,000 people African Americans got thrown off the voting rolls in Florida by Jeb Bush. That kind of thing, that we're going to see that kind of red shift in state after state. Do you know what the state of exit polling is before we get to Brian Kemp and everything else that's going on?
Terrible. What's happened is after the exit pollsters caught the Bush family in stealing the 2000 election, they were hauled before Congress. Then they found out, then the exit pollsters said, John Kerry won Ohio, won the presidency. Oops, they got hauled in again. So now they do something called conforming. Are you ready for this? They do their exit polls, and then when they get the official numbers, they start loading in the official numbers and throwing away their own actual data, which is the one thing that we have to try to figure out whether they stole the election, you know, for sure. You know, the United States State Department uses exit polls as the gold standard for determining whether an election was stolen. That's Ukraine.
Oh, we overturned the election in Ukraine, for God's sake, because of exit polls.
Exactly. And so now we find that Hillary won the sufficient states to win the Electoral College in 2016. And you had it exactly right. By the way, I know what you said because I do listen to the Thom Hartmann Program on KPFK.
God bless you. And by the way, KPFK is in a fund drive, as many of our Pacifica stations are right now. And if you can pitch in, if you can help out, if you can toss some money their way, please do so. And Greg and I are going to be on day after tomorrow. We're going to be at a fundraiser in San Pedro at the Warner Grand Theater, at 3:30 in the afternoon, and it's a fundraiser for KPFK, and kpfk.org is the website. So anyhow, back to exit polls.
Yes, so we have this horrible thing called conforming, where they simply take the official word and the official bogus numbers, and you're absolutely right on why this is happening. We're talking in the last election officially, 2.7 million provisional ballots reported. That's probably about half the number actually cast. 2 million of those were never counted. And that's the official word from the federal government. So we have this massive kind of back-of-the-bus voting system called provisional ballots, which is pretty much for voters of color. And I just came back from Georgia, and you are going to see provisional ballots in Georgia like you can't believe coming in. Plus, you're right, you have absentee ballots being thrown in the garbage. They use in Georgia a system, Brian Kemp, Brian Kemp, he's the Secretary of State. He's the guy who runs the election, counts the ballots, and he's running for governor at the same time, avoiding the usual inconvenience that secretaries of state who run for higher office resign first, so there's no conflict of interest. I mean, conflicts are us that's his operation's name.
Tongue in cheek, but yeah, I get that.
Excuse me.
So
fact check. Yeah, that was I made that up.
The Republicans have been caught warning donors about voting while black. Is that donors or voters? Do I have a typo here?
Donors. He was on a private call with. He thought private.
Who's he?
That is Brian Kemp, the Secretary of State, who is running against Stacey Abrams. He's the Republican, she's the Democrat, and as you should know by now, she'd be the first African-American female governor of the United States if they count all the ballots, at least from what the polling is showing. But so Kemp got on the phone and is scaring his donors into coughing up more money because he said, you know, Stacey Abrams is basically beating the crap out of us on absentee ballots, people asking for absentee ballots in advance. Now, he has some tricks up his sleeve to make sure those ballots don't get to those voters, don't get counted, et cetera. But in the meantime, he's basically telling his donors, man, if they count these ballots, we lose. Send me money.
Wow. So what is the state of things right now? I noticed on your website a couple days ago, and in fact, I wrote an op-ed about it that was picked up at Slate and Common Dreams and Alternet and whatnot, in which I quoted you, and I had multiple links to your website, that you have all these different state voter totals. At the time that I wrote the article on Sunday, I think it was, you had not put up a total for Nebraska, but you had the list and people could check it out.
Right.
What's the grand total? I mean, how many people do we know of so far that just in the last, 6 months or so, or the last year have been purged from the voting rolls, and in what states? And then, of course, the follow-up question will be, and what can you do if you show up and they say, oh, here's a provisional ballot, I can't find your name?
Well, number one, we have filed, and I say we, myself as a journalist, and then I'm joined by Reverend Jesse Jackson, other activists, NAACP, and in Georgia, the campaign, the Georgia Coalition for People's Agenda. That's Reverend Lowry's organization. So it's civil rights groups, and what we're doing is we're suing the states to get the names and addresses of people who have been purged, 26 states. We've got about 15 to comply, Colorado, Nebraska, Indiana, Illinois, and after we threatened to haul his behind into court in the last week of his campaign, Brian Kemp
in
Georgia has turned over the voter rolls. I did file a federal suit against him on Friday in Atlanta federal court because he's still stonewalling me on key information. And so that's so I'm still. But what we have found out is just in Georgia alone, we had 550,000 people purged from the voter rolls on grounds, they call it inactive. What that means is that they move them from inactive to canceled. If you wonder what that fancy term means, it means that they think that Brian Kemp has decided that you've moved from the state or moved from your county. And I would say so far we've gathered over 2 million names.
And the rationale, by the way, for that assertion is typically that you failed to vote in the last election.
You failed to vote, and then they send you a postcard. We call it the postcard trick.
Yeah, it's called it used to be called caging. There used to be, I mean, for 30 years there was a federal court order preventing the Republican Party from doing this.
But now they've got the court. So what they do is they mail you a letter. It looks like junk mail. In Illinois, 19 out of 20 people throw it in the garbage because it looks like junk mail. And then if you miss an election, they say, oh, that means that you've moved out of the state or you've left. And so you lose your vote. And so are you ready for this? 500,000 Georgians we know and have been given zero notice that they have been purged, that is, from the voter rolls, that is, their registrations are canceled. And I want to tell you what we did, Tom. I did something no other journalist has done. Number one, sue to get the actual names and addresses of each of these voters. I did something else. I hired about 4 major consulting firms whose total job, what they do is that they find out where you live. I hate to tell you this, but American Express knows where you are on Thursday at 2 p.m.
Right. Yeah, these are companies that sell marketing information to people who want to sell things to you, basically.
Right, and these are the number one consultants in the nation to the biggest companies, and they have special what they call address hygiene systems, and they can tell you with absolute certainty where people live.
I used to run a company that marketed with direct mail. This is a very sophisticated. I mean, it's these operations. So yeah, so these people know whether somebody still lives there or not. And they know it for sure because they've been engaging in commerce with these people, typically in the previous weeks or months. So they told you what?
Yeah, they have 200 databases, and we have a special contract with the post office as well, by the way. And using 200 databases and the post office latest data, they say with 96% certainty, they gave us the names and addresses of 340,134 Georgians who never left the state and never left their county, never moved out of their registration home where they originally registered to vote. 340,134. Overwhelmingly, these are voters of color. These are poor voters. These are students. It is not, so they literally will not know if they show up to vote that they've been knocked off the voter rolls. They'll be given one of those provisional ballots, which will not be counted. You cannot count a ballot if you are not registered, says Brian Kemp. Even if he wrongly removed you from the voter rolls,
right,
he's going to throw away your ballot and your provisional ballot. But however, you'll tell the exit polls, oh, I voted. and then there'll be a difference. And when that difference is uncovered, the exit pollsters will, quote, conform the data to the official line.
Now, since the election of 2000, when this was really rolled out in a big way on behalf of George W. Bush by his brother Jeb in Florida, but it was done in numerous other states too, we have had election after election where the exit pollsters said the Democrats won, but the actual count says the Republicans won as a result of this voter suppression. It seems to me that had this happened to the Republican Party and been done by the Democratic Party, that starting in 2000, they would have been screaming bloody murder. It would have been absolute holy hell from the rafters. How are the scions? How are the wise elders of the Democratic Party responding to the research that you're doing and to what you're uncovering?
Well, there's one elder named Stacey Abrams who I've been talking to about this for 5 years. By the way, my lawsuit and investigation began before he even discussed running for governor. I didn't think he was running for governor. So I'm not trying to influence the election. I'm trying to get people back their votes and get the information. But she understands it, and so we have major African American politicians understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
My problem is with the Democrats' white congressional caucus. For example, when I issued the purge list in Colorado, which was given to me by the Republican Secretary of State. His name is Wayne Williams.
In response to a lawsuit.
In response to my lawsuit.
Yeah, he wasn't being generous. He was forced to. Yeah, okay.
He was forced to give the names of the people he removed from the voter rolls, hundreds of thousands of Coloradans. And when I called him on it, he screamed bloody murder, held press conferences, attacked me. And the Democratic Party candidate's reaction was, he didn't like, or she didn't like what Greg Palast was saying because the Democratic candidate didn't want to be negative.
Oh, God.
We don't want to be negative. We don't want to talk about voters losing their votes. In Colorado, it's Hispanics and American natives. That's who's at risk in Colorado. So you ask, why should a state like Colorado, which should be blue to the core, given its demographics, why are Democrats losing Colorado? Because the Democratic Party is not protecting its voters of color. It's the sad and true story. Yeah.
And that's one state. Is that emblematic of what's happening all over? I mean, I'm surprised Tom Perez is not screaming about this in the rooftops. Can you imagine if Newt Gingrich was running the Republican Party? I mean, he's out there right now saying, "Oh yeah, the media deserved this." I mean, it's not, you could just imagine how the Republicans would play this if it's sad.
Well, when I uncovered the purge of tens of thousands of black voters in Florida, they were called felons. Their only crime was voting while black.
Right.
The head of the Democratic Party there was trying to get trying to get Democratic politicians to say something. They wouldn't. They're afraid to say that they are the protectors of black criminals, that they're protectors of illegal alien voters, et cetera. In other words, they're cowering from the Republican attacks. Remember, the Republicans' response to this is that they're preventing massive voter fraud.
Right.
As if, and again, that they're having people drive in from out of state. No, they've never left Georgia. These are Georgians, sir, in Mr. Kemp. So again, it's unfortunate there's a huge racial divide within the Democratic Party on this.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that we can do about that is elevate this to the status of issue. If all the Democrats listening to this program, for example, were to call their member of Congress at 202-224-3121, you have one member of the House, 2 senators, call all 3 of them and say, I want you, if they're talking to a Democrat, I want you to do everything you can to get the Democratic Party to raise holy hell about this voter suppression and this whole scam with the placebo ballot, the provisional ballots. Greg Palast, and of course, get over to Greg Palast's website, gregpalast.com, and check out his movie, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. Greg, I'll see you day after tomorrow in San Pedro.
Yep, you got me. Okay.
KPFK.org. Looking forward to it.